Good evening, fellow Plexers. Hamada posted in the Plex Media Server support group a question about getting his music library straight, and that caused my brain to think of doing a little experiment. So what I have is I have a couple albums, two with full metadata supplied by MusicBrainz Picard, and then the same two albums with the metadata stripped out of it. And that way, I can run a test to see what Plex likes better. And this is Plex's main support article for adding music. And if you kind of scroll down, it gives you an example. You know, you have your library folder. You create an artist folder, and then inside that you create albums. And then inside that folder you have track numbers and names, and the 101 signifies first CD or first album, first song, second album, second CD, first song, and so on. So I'm just going to go with something more simple, just 01 through 13 for this one, and 01 for 13 that one, for that one. And again, this one has all the metadata. So let's pull these two into MusicBrainz Picard. And because the metadata is complete, you'll see they load up in the right pane with little gold CDs. And if we break it open, you'll see each song has all the metadata you could want. So let's ditch these two. And let's pull in these modified albums. So MusicBrainz Picard is not adding them to the right pane, so we'll cluster them. I've got two albums just based on the folder and file names, and then we really just have info based on how the files are named. First song Tango used to be, second song has the runtime, and I don't know what this acoustic ID is, but let's pull it out of at least one of these albums. So I'm just moving down to each song, double clicking the metadata and hitting delete. And now I'll save that. And let's pull this one back in. Let's get rid of it. Pull it back in. Cluster. I guess I can't remove that acoustic ID metadata, so we'll just go with it as it is. So I have a test library set up on my Synology NAS, and what we'll do is we'll rename this one just to be Patty Larkin, and it won't have any metadata. And we'll move it over. Okay, so let me bring my web app in, and we'll add a music library. Let's call it test. Let's browse to it. Let's check the advanced. Okay, so we got the default scanner and agent, nothing to do with iTunes. And on this test, let's prefer local metadata. We don't have metadata, but let's just check that anyway. All right, so we're adding that. And Plex finds it as various artists because there's no metadata. So just naming the files as what they should be doesn't really do much for you. Even though we have the name of the artist in the folder, Plex is finding this as a various artist. So let's fix that. Let's get this out of here. And move the better folder in. Okay, so now all we should have to do is scan the library again. Well, let's refresh all the metadata. Okay, so now with a metadata refresh, we know the artist is Patty Larkin. We see all the track names, but the artwork hasn't come in. So let's do this differently. Let's nuke that library. Well, it looks like it's still scanning, but there's no activity up there. Let's just start fresh. Let's nuke it. And let's do a new library. We'll call this one Music Test 2. And this time we'll make sure that we do not check prefer local metadata. And maybe we should have waited for the first library to be fully deleted. There we go. And by preferring the online data connection and having the metadata in the tracks themselves, both these albums scan perfectly. So MusicBrainz Picard is probably the best program I've come across. And while we're doing this, let's show Hamada how easy it is to work with. So we've got this 2 albums without metadata. So I could drag the 2 albums in, or I could just drag the folder they're in. First off, you hit cluster, and then you can just highlight a album and choose scan. And we'll see what MusicBrainz Picard picks. Okay, so it got it partially right. It assigned 12 of the songs that had no metadata in them to the correct album except for 1. So we can literally drag that back, or let's do it this way. Let's make it full screen so we can see everything. We could drag it back and then drag it over, or we could just drag it down. So now you just highlight the album and hit save, and we can ditch this one and we can ditch that, and we'll do the same for the Angels Running album. We'll hit scan and see how it does this time. Well, this was perfect. And you'll see all that metadata is back, and we just hit save. And now if we start MusicBrainz Picard again, and drag the whole kit and caboodle in. It just loads up knowing what the albums are. So the metadata embedded is key for a Plex music library, unlike the actual structure of how you organize the folders, their naming, and the file names. That's really secondary, and there's a lot of taggers out there, but MusicBrainz Picard is cross-platform. You can use it under Linux like I am, you can use it in Windows, you can use it on a Mac, and it connects to other online databases, and it's your best friend with a Plex music library. So Hamada, I hope this helps you out. It really can't be any easier once you play around with MusicBrainz Picard. And I do have other tutorials on this subject, but I wanted to do a little experiment with two of the same albums, one with metadata, one without, and you kind of see how it all worked out. Thanks for watching, and feel free to drop any questions.